Lexus is one of those unique brands because a lot of people want them, but deals are all over the place. Some people say you should be paying above MSRP on a Lexus, while other people say below. The real question is, who do you trust and who has the right answers? If you guys don't know, my name's Tommy, and I own a company called Delivered, and we negotiate car deals for a living, over 150 on a monthly basis. And Lexus is one of our biggest brands. So I'd like to say that I'm an expert on what a good deal is and what a bad deal is. So I'm gonna go through every single car so you don't have to, and you can learn exactly what you should be targeting when you're buying your next car. Some of these cars I am going to preface that we don't do a lot of. So understand that. I'm going to go through because some of these are weird cars that Lexus still sells for whatever reason, but they're not popular for us to negotiate. First off is a Lexus IS, and it really depends on what you're going for trim here. 7% off is extremely attainable on this car. Now, they do have higher end trims, like with an F Sport. These are going to be a little bit more difficult. 5 to 7% is a little bit more attainable. 7% is what we normally try to achieve on every single IS deal, no matter the trim minus the 500s, where we're trying to get right around 5 to 7%. Next is going to be the ES, very similar to the IS. We are looking for 7 to 10% off. These cars do not sell as well as their counterpart. They're not as desirable of a vehicle. 7 to 10% is what we try to achieve every single time. Now, for transparency's sake, I'm going to be skipping the LS. Honestly, I do not remember the last time anybody bought this car. I don't know. 7% is a good rule of thumb because that's something that we normally do. But when it comes down to it, I have no idea on the Lexus. Now we're looking at the Lexus UX Hybrid. Now, Lexus is very unique because the hybrid cars are much more desirable and harder to negotiate than the gas cars. It's not uncommon, but when it comes down to it, Lexus is probably more true than any other brand. Now, Lexus UX, 5 to 7% is what we try to achieve. Honestly, I don't love this car. I think if you're looking for a smaller sedan, the NX is just a better vehicle. The UX is very small, and I'd recommend before you ever buy one, you drive it and compare it to an NX, as I think the NX is just the better vehicle. Moving on to the NX gas model. Now, out of the lineup, the NX is the hardest car to get out of everything. The NX, if we're looking for a gas model, we are consistently getting 7 to 9% off. That is very, very typical in the Lexus world, but on a hybrid, stop. Great car. We own this car. This is our car. This is our baby. It's an awesome vehicle. Juliana loves it to death. We are seeing very typical, depending on your market, the Pacific Northwest, MSRP can be considered a great deal on this car. West Coast, MSRP can be considered a great deal on this car. And the East Coast, a little bit more calm. $1,000 to $2,800 off is a really, really crazy deal on this car. But understand, depending on where you are, the hybrid is very hard to get. You're gonna have to open up your options, be a little bit more flexible. If you only want to go one color, one option, it's going to get hard. You cannot order a Lexus. There's no way unless you are buying LC 500 something edition. I don't remember the exact name. I'll get to it in just a minute. The Icon edition. It's the only time that you can order an exact car. Otherwise, you cannot order this car. It doesn't exist. Looking at the Lexus RZ. The Lexus RZ is on my do not buy car right now. I do not recommend this car. I don't understand the appeal. The range is horrible. The design doesn't look good, and the interior is just lackluster. When it comes down to it, this car is not a good buy. A year ago, the lease deals were incredible, where you could at least maybe buy the vehicle. But when it comes down to it right now, this car is just not a good value. Eventually, the lease deals will get better, and maybe when they're giving you $20,000 off to lease the car, it'll make sense. But today, the car is overpriced. It doesn't make sense, and I would rather buy a Mach-E than I ever would an RZ. Lexus RX. Now, the RX has a little bit more wiggle room on these cars. We are seeing 7 to 9% off on these cars. The Lexus RX is going to be one of the most popular models. Honestly, it's one of my favorite models in Lexus' lineup. When it comes down to it, the deals on this car are a little bit better than the NX. It's a little less desirable, which is crazy because it sells better, but they manufacture more of them, which means the deals are a little bit better. Discounts are going to vary in this car depending on region. So I'm going to say 5 to 9%. Understand on the gas model, of course, the deals are better. If you're in the Pacific Northwest, these cars are really desirable. The West Coast, very desirable. Down in the Southeast, this car you can actually get some pretty decent deals on. Even in Texas, this car can be difficult to get. Understand 5 to 9% is a very good range. Aim for 9%, but if you get to that 6 to 7% range, you've done well. Now looking at the hybrid model, the hybrid model is not as crazy as its counterpart, the NX, but it is still highly desirable. This car is really going to be $1,000 off to $3,500 off, again, depending on the region. Pacific Northwest, West Coast, you know the drill. When it comes down to the Southeast, that's where the best deals on this car are. Now we're getting to some of the more desirable cars. The TX, we're really going to go into two different vehicles, which is going to be the hybrid and the non-hybrid. Now the gas model, this car does not have, the gas model doesn't have the same hype as the hybrid model. The gas model is definitely available. Discounts are slim. It's hard to find this vehicle with the recall that just went through. Our typical discount around this car is right around $2,500 off TSRP. We do not pay the add-ons. We don't pay any of that crazy stuff, but $2,500 off is what we typically get. We have seen discounts up to $3,500, maybe even $4,000 off on the higher trims, but realistically, $2,500 is a great ballpark on this car. If you are looking for the hybrid, finding one is a win. That is a success. You've done your job, and MSRP is considered a great deal. We don't find many of these cars because they don't manufacture many of them, but understand the hybrid is an MSRP is a good deal type situation. But let's talk about the Lexus GX. Now, the Lexus GX is one of the most popular cars in the world. There's been viral videos talking about how awesome and great this car is and how everybody's been trying to find them. Realistically, finding one is the deal. Getting a deal, I'm gonna remind you, as I've said many times, you cannot order this car. If a dealership says just put an order in, you're probably going to be waiting 6 months to a year and a half for your vehicle. This is not the fastest way to get a car, but it can sometimes be the best way if you don't want to shop. Our clients are normally waiting less than 30 days for their GX 550s, but it involves calling up to 100 different dealerships to get their best deal. Realistically, the best deal to date that Delivered has ever done on a GX 550 is $1,200 off TSRP. This is going to be an anomaly. MSRP is considered the standard on this car. That is what I would expect on this car. Finding one is a deal. If I am being as honest as I can, driving both the GX and the Land Cruiser, I understand the exterior of this car is beautiful. It's great. I think it's one of the best looking SUVs in the last 5 years. That being said, I'm a bigger fan of the Land Cruiser. I think the Land Cruiser is a better value, and when it comes down to it, you can get better deals on them. So I understand a lot of people are looking for GXs, and you can get GXs easily close to 80 to 90 grand, but I would much rather have a cheaper $15,000 Land Cruiser that I think the interior is just as nice. Now the exterior is better on the GX 550, but the interior on the GX 550 is just lacking. Not the 1956 Land Cruiser. I'm not talking about that one yet. The Lexus LX, 5 to 7% off is what you're going to obtain on these cars. These cars just nearly aren't as popular. Not many people are buying them. Most people are going to the GX 550. This is not a popular model. They don't make a lot of them though. So open up your radius. You can find deals, but 5 to 8% is definitely what we are achieving normally on this car. I don't think the last time I did an RC, honestly, I don't. So I'll talk about LC. LC, this is the one car that you can actually custom build. It is the Bespoke Edition, that's what it's called. The Bespoke build, the only car that you can custom build to be the perfect car to yourself. In the Lexus lineup, if it's not a Bespoke, you can't order it. When it comes down to it, we are typically seeing on this car anywhere between 5 to 7% off is very, very typical on this car. Some car dealerships are going to be very stubborn on discounting at all. We can see good deals on these cars. If you're getting close to 5%, you've done a good job. That's okay. Getting 7% would be a vehicle is much harder to get. These are all the deals you have on Lexus. If you guys have any other questions, or if you want to see a different car, let me know.